Today is melt, mold, and move your hips. So what we're going to do is primarily rolling, but then I also want to get some muscle activation. I feel like muscle activation is equally important in retraining the hips with the mobilization. A lot of times our hips start to feel tight or don't move well because we don't have great separation of movement in the hips or good hip proprioception. So my plan today is to begin with, I'm going to use the alpha ball, and we're just going to start with some glute rolling at the wall. And just to wake up the gluteal muscles. And then I really want to come in and I want to sink through the front hip musculature, get through the hip flexors, a little bit of the upper quads, open up the front of the hips. And then I want to get some glute activation. First, we'll get some hip extension, then we'll work a little bit into hip rotation. That's the general plan for today. So I really like for this work the alpha ball. This is about a softball, fist-sized ball. And I'm going to use that against the wall to start, and I'm also going to use it in the front of the hip. Other tools you can use if you have a smaller or tennis ball size ball, when we're on our belly, I will also cue you how to use the tennis ball with a block, the tennis size ball with a block that will just lift it up a little bit more. And if that doesn't feel good, I'm also going to cue you in to how you can use your foam roller. So the foam roller is also a great tool. If you tend to have any instability in the pelvis, like you're hypermobile, the foam roller is a great option. So if you have a foam roller out, grab that. If you don't have a foam roller, you can also use the Coregeous ball for one of the things that we're going to be doing, or a block or a couple of thick books. So I'm just going to lay all of these things out. And if anybody has any questions or any particular requests, go ahead and ask me now. Or if you're dealing with some sort of injury that you'd like me to be aware of or address throughout the session, please let me know before we begin. I'm happy to help, personalize, do whatever I can to make this suitable for you, using the equipment you have and dealing with anything you have going on. Let's begin. Take your ball right into the middle of the left gluteal area. You're gonna lean back against the wall, step your feet out, a good 1.5 feet, I would say. If you have a smaller ball, you might need to be a little closer, but I'm leaning in, using my weight, and now I'm swishing side to side, just rocking my hips, kind of like I'm dancing. From one foot to the other, sweeping across the back of the glutes. And this is a nice way to wake them up. I suggest this activity, actually, if you are a walker, if you're a runner, if you go out and are going to do a lot of activity, this is a nice way to wake up those glute muscles before you go. So just sway side to side, maybe pausing if you find a tender point. Breathing deeply, keeping the jaw relaxed, keeping the shoulders relaxed. You may notice throughout this class that if you start to feel sensation in the hip, that initial response is to tighten the jaw. The jaw and the hip rotators are very closely connected. So doing this rolling through the hips can actually maybe even help or influence some TMJ symptoms. And now maybe go up and down a little bit across the back of the hip. It's kind of like a little chug, like a little kid that's just bouncing up and down. Sort of be relaxed. Oops, I'm at the edge of the wall. Let yourself just gently Gently go up and down. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be like a squat. You're just zigzagging across the back of the hip. And then as you get out towards the side of the hip, maybe turn on a diagonal to the wall now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do little circles on the side of the hip. And I'm going to go right around the border of the hip bone. So there's the circular bone on the side of your hip, your greater trochanter, and I'm just going right around there, freeing up the edges of that greater trochanter. So right against the wall. I'm just showing you. I didn't wear the best color pants today, the gray ball against the gray pants. Sorry about that. Please let me know if you have any difficulty seeing what I'm doing. And then again, if you find a point of sensation, a tender point, right where the ball and the body meet, just pause there. Sustain compression, allow the body to soften under the weight of the ball. Make sure you're staying in the pelvis, not going above the hip bone like you were to put your hands on your hips. Stay below that point. And then release. And then if you just come to stand away from the wall for a second, just notice the difference now. I roll my left side first. So just notice the difference in standing on the left and right foot. You may feel something, may feel nothing. Just take the chance to check in with the sensations of the body before you switch to the other side. So now ball right to the middle of the glute on the right side. Lean that ball up against the wall and start to sway side to side. And right away, on this side, I found a point of sensation. So I'm just going to sustain a little pressure. You can continue sweeping. You can do a little zigzag, a little chug up and down. But listen to what feels right in your body. This side may feel completely different than the other side. So wherever you are on this side in this moment, meet yourself right there. Take a few deep breaths. Coming back to the jaw, what's happening in the mouth. Letting the arms be relaxed, letting the jaw be relaxed. Sensing where else in your body can be soft. And then going up and down. Zigzagging across the back, a little chug of the knees. And then I'm just going to turn away from you for a moment. So as you go to the side of the hip, you're diagonal to the wall just a little bit. And then you're going to just draw circles around the hip bone, tracing the edges of the greater trochanter, the bony point at the side of the hip, staying below the place, the narrow place in the waist where you put your hands on your hips. So staying in the side of the pelvis. You may find a tender point, which could be the tensor fascia lata, the little muscle that sits inside of the IT band, which we'll get at a little bit later. Spend about another 10 breaths or so here. So like another, maybe about a minute, a little less than a minute, exploring the side of the hip now. waking up all the receptors in the muscles so we can get them to fire better. So we can get them both to fire and to relax better. Turn on and off more effectively. And then come away from the wall. Just recheck your standing. Maybe it feels a little bit more balanced now. Yeah, shifting side to side, noticing if you can shift a little bit better. And then as you're ready, let's come down to our belly. I'll show you a couple different options here. I like to go into the front of the hips first. The front of the hips are such a critical area to get into. We spend so much time sitting. We tend to be quad dominant. And then if our quads are tight, our glutes and our abdominals don't fire as well. So we're going to try to get into the hip flexors and the top of the quads a little bit to free up the front so all this back side can work better. So I'm going to start over my foam roller and just allow myself to drape over the foam roller. However, you can also come right to the alpha ball in the front of your hip. Where we're looking to place the ball is right to the inside of this front hip point, your ASIS, and then the ball is coming just inside of that. And we're just going to spend some time here. If this is too much, come back to your foam roller or come to the Coregeous ball right here. If you only have a small set of balls, take a book or a couple books and place your small ball right in the same place. I find this a little bit more reactive because it's like putting a thumb versus putting an elbow in that area. So it's a lot more point sensitive. So find what version works for you. And please note that if you have any questions, please turn your camera on. I'll give you suggestions, modifications, variations. So I'm just going to come with my foam roller for a minute so I can ease into it because I haven't been in here yet today. And if you find that your alpha ball is a little too much, you can come back off to a broader surface. And then as you arrive here, maybe you rock your hips a little bit. Rocking the hips just to ease in. So as you rock the hips, you bump into the sensation and then come off of the sensation. Rock into the sensation, come off of the sensation. And it's like rocking a baby. So decreasing tone, reaction, and allowing the body to settle in. And then I'll come back to my alpha ball.
Erica, where should we be feeling the stretch on that one?
So you will probably be feeling pressure, not stretch, in the front of the hip. There should be a fairly notable trigger point in the front of the pelvis. The psoas is a really big, thick muscle. So if you're having a hard time feeling that just right spot, you can curl the toes under. Can you see my toes? And then just kind of go up and down a little bit and explore that area and find that tender spot, and you'll land right on it. And then now we're just going to hang out here. We're just going to let time and that gentle rocking and deep breathing of the body, where the body meets the ball, to soften into the sensation in the front of the hip. Thank you for asking. Breathing in through your nose. Exhale, softening. Letting go through the mouth. As you exhale, letting the body sink a little bit more around the ball. And then if you're ready to add a little bit of movement, start to bend your knee and then straighten your knee. Now notice if you feel any increased pull as you bend your knee. You may not. You may start to hear some belly grumbling. And in the next round of bending your knee, start to rotate your foot in and out. So now we're getting a little bit of rotation in the hip, rolling over the psoas, the hip flexor tendon. And if you feel like, oh, I just need to adjust a tiny bit, go ahead, find that just right spot under the ball. Let the sensations of the body be your teacher. Let them guide you to that just right spot. Like, oh, this is where I need to be. Listening to what your body has to say. Following the body. And this rotational action is super important here because a lot of the restrictions and limitations oftentimes in the hip flexor are in that rotational direction. So maybe if you rotate the foot one way, you'll bump up against a little bit more sensation, and then maybe pause there, hold for a few breaths. Melt into the sensation. Yeah, let the head really just be relaxed on your hands. I'm keeping my head up so I can see each of you as well as so that you can hear me. And then maybe just readjust one more time if the sensation under the ball subsided. I've kind of worked my way down, down, down. I'm still above the hip crease, so I'm still actually in the front of the pelvis. And I'm sinking, melting, letting time and gravity do the work so that the alpha ball or whatever ball you're using can just make its way in a little bit more. And you might even try bending again, rotating again if you change the position of the ball. And then release. So now, if you have the alpha ball or if you have the ball in the front of the pelvis, keep it there. If you tend to be hypermobile or have SI joint problems, something more symmetrical I think would be better. And that's why I say if you tend to be hypermobile, I showed the foam roller as a modification. So I put the foam roller here because now we're gonna come into some glute activation. So we're gonna follow up this release to the front of the hip by engaging the back of the hip. So then we can create a pattern to sustain that release. So listening to your body, finding whatever modification's right for you. For me, it's the ball in the front of my hip. I'm going to turn my right toes under. I'm going to squeeze my thigh, squeeze my butt, just on the right. Keep the belly slightly engaged so that you're not moving at the pelvis or the spine. Then I'm going to point my toe. So I feel the whole back line of the leg engaged. Maybe lift a 1/4 of an inch so I feel the calf, the hamstring, the quad, all engaging to lift the leg. And you'll feel increased pressure into the front. And then release all the way down. Sink into the ball a little bit more. We're going to do that 4 more times. Curl the toes under. Squeeze your thigh. Squeeze your behind. Keep the pelvis still. Don't arch the back. Just point the toe. Only use your buttocks to lift a 1/2 inch more. Hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release. 3 more times. Curl the toes under. Squeeze your thigh. Squeeze your behind. Point your toes. 1/2 inch higher. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. All of the sensation here should be where the ball is meeting the body and in the glute on the side you're lifting. Keep all of the sensation out of the back and keep the pelvis pressing into the earth so the back stays stable. 2 more times. Squeeze, point, lift, hold, and release. Last time like this. Squeeze, point, little lift. You might feel that it goes higher even than when you first did it. Now keep the squeeze. Lift 1/4 inch higher and then lower the leg down, keeping the point. Toes touch, lift up and lower. Lift up and lower. Lift up, lift up. 5 more. Squeeze. 4. No movement in the back or pelvis, just a squeeze of the butt. Feel the back of the leg burning now. Last time, and then down. Remove the ball, come all the way to your belly. Kind of stretch the legs out on the floor. And wow, notice the difference in the front of your pelvis on the right, if that's the side you just did, and the left. Notice how the thigh is resting differently on the earth. Notice even how the top of the foot is resting differently on the earth. The side that you just rolled probably feels like it's about like 2 inches longer. So just observe the change without rushing to the other side. Just feel the effect of what we just did. And then as you're ready, let's turn over to the other side. So now I'm coming to the left side of my pelvis. Ball goes right inside the bony landmark. So I'm above the hip crease, kind of right in the belly, just bumping up into the inside of your pelvis. And then you may turn the toes under just for a minute to kind of pedal yourself up and down just to feel that spot to land. And then just land there. Let the body be heavy, come down to the earth. You can let your head rest on your hands. I'm going to keep it up so I can continue to see you. And you can continue to hear me. And just sink in. So now let gravity and the weight of your body and your breath do all the work. So relax any clenching in the butt, any clenching in the jaw. Take some deep breaths in, breathing to where the ball and the body meet. As the sensation subsides, maybe finding the next point by rolling up or down a little bit, allowing the ball to sink in somewhere else in the range. Take 3 more breaths here in stillness. And then start to bend and straighten your knee. Just bending as far as you can without feeling any movement over the ball. So if you start to feel the pelvis lift, back off on that bending a little bit. Just go to where you start to feel any compensation in the pelvis. Because if you're moving the back, the low back or the pelvis, then you're pushing past any soft tissue barriers. And with repetition, that bend will start to increase. And then the next time you bend, think about letting the foot windshield wiper in and out. You can do it with the knee bent to 90 degrees, or if you want, you can straighten the leg back out. But I really like doing it here so that you're rolling over the cord of the hip flexor. Maybe you have to adjust the ball placement, listening to the body, letting the body lead you, finding that just right spot, that you can meet the sensation, that you're not fighting it, you're not efforting, you're just meeting yourself right where you are. Pausing if you find a place in that rotation that stimulates some sensation, breathing into it, sustaining compression there until it softens, allowing, welcoming, keeping the rest of the body relaxed. And then as the sensation subsides, letting your foot come back down, maybe finding one more point in there in the hip flexor, just inside that bony landmark of the pelvis, and landing on it. And then as you're ready, curl the left toes under. Squeeze your left thigh. Squeeze your left glute. Point your left toes. Hold that. Maybe lift 1/4 inch without moving the spine or the pelvis. And release. Again, taking any modification that works for you, whether you need the stability or the range given by the foam roller. Curl the toes under, squeeze your thigh, squeeze your behind, point your toes, and then release. Let's do 3 more like this. Toes curl under. Squeeze your left thigh, squeeze the left butt, point the left toes, hover the leg, feel the left whole leg engage along the back line of the body. And relax. 2 more times. Curl, squeeze, point, lift. And relax. Last time. Lift. Maybe even give it a little 1/4 inch more lift than you did on the last round. And then keep the toes pointed, keep the leg long. Let the toes tap 10 times. Lift up and down. No spinal movement, no pelvis movement. Just feeling the leg lifting, moving the ball in the socket, freeing up hip extension, regaining this motion. 3, 2, last time, and then remove all of the props from under you. Lay flat on your belly for a moment. Rest completely to the floor. Feel the broadness and the heaviness in the front of your pelvis. letting any lingering sensations subside. And then we're going to come onto our backs. So I have 2 more rolls and 1 more glute activation, more so into the side, into the rotational motions. So what I'm going to use for this is first I'm going to use a single of the standard therapy balls. And then I'm going to put both balls in the tote for the next roll. So we're going to do left and right on our back, then move to our side. So come onto your back, bend your knees, feet on the floor. I'm going to go to the left side first. That's what's facing you. Taking that ball right into the middle of the glute. Now I'm going to let the pelvis drop down to the floor. Bring your hands to the pelvis, not letting the pelvis or the back do any movement. Right leg, pelvis, low back, all are still. Now, just start to let the left knee drop down to the side. Just go to where you feel that first resistance and then come up. Isolating mobility of the hip inside the socket. Let it come out. Let it come up. Just go to that initial barrier. And now let's add a little contract, relax there. So right when you get to the end range, before the pelvis starts to move, squeeze your behind. Actually, try to push the ball out. So it's kind of like you levitate a little bit off of the ball while you're in that rotated position outward with the knee. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and then release. And as you sink, allow the knee to fall out to the side a little bit more. Now let's come back to the rocking, moving through that new range. Now come to that new end range. Squeeze again. Engage your left glute. Push the ball out. Feel even more muscle fibers contract this time in that end range. So we're now activating the hip rotators in the end range of motion, reteaching them how to work. And then release, sink in a little bit more. And you'll see how the leg goes out even a little bit more. One more round just like that. Rotating in and out. Trying to move the knee smoothly without letting anything else move. One more rocking action. Then come to the end range. Last round of contract, relax. Squeeze. And release. Now in this rotated position, let's just do a little sweep across the back of the hip. Now you'll let the spine and pelvis move, the leg stays still, feeling the opposite of what we just did. Now moving, rocking this pelvis, kind of like hula across the back of the hip. Just flushing out what we just did. Okay. Return to center. Notice the way the glutes feel now. Notice the difference as they rest on the floor before you switch to the other side. And when you're ready, standard therapy ball, single, comes right into the middle of the glute on the right. Let the pelvis sink down. You might not feel a lot when you first put the ball there, but as you start to rotate it, you'll know you start to feel more. Hands come to the front of the pelvis as a reminder to keep the pelvis stable. Now start to move the knee in and out. And then when you get to the end range next time, that place at the end of the motion where the body wants to start going with the knee, squeeze the buttocks as hard as you can, hold for 3, 2, 1, and then release. And then come back to your rocking. 2 more rounds of that contract, relax on your own time, progressing the end range rotation of the hip. So when that knee falls out as far as it can, engage the muscles in that full externally rotated position, squeezing, activating in that range, re-educating the muscles how to work here. And after contraction, allowing them to relax. And that letting go is going to let the knee fall out just a little bit more. Let's do that one more time. In and out. When you're ready, do your last round of contract, relax, holding for a good 7 to 10 seconds. Trying to squeeze every muscle fiber in the glute. Releasing completely, letting the legs stay out to the side. Just give me a few sweeps across the back of the buttocks. And when you feel ready, remove the ball and just let the pelvis really sink into the floor now. These rolls that we've been doing can be pretty intense. So you might find a sense of energy, of activity, of vibrancy when you stop. So allow that to settle and just come back to stillness. And then we have one more roll today. We're going to do 2 more things, 1 more roll, but we're going to come onto our sides. Like you're sitting in a chair, knees in front. And I'm just going to take my Coregeous ball to support my head. You can take a block, take a bolster, take a foam roller, anything you want. But I'm just going to, just so my head can stay neutral. Now, I'm going to take my therapy balls just like this along the IT band. First, I'm going to come to the middle of the IT band. We'll do 2 ball stops. So below the hip bone, lie right on my side. And you'll feel this is pretty tender. I keep them together in the tote. That's going to unweight them a little bit, make them a little broader. And now from here, I'm going to straighten and bend my knees. I'm doing both together. This might feel like, no way is that happening. Your top leg can just be a kickstand, and you can just move the bottom one. Just bending and straightening till you feel resistance. It does not have to go all the way. Marcia, you'll probably really feel the pull on this one. This is a nice way to get at the IT band, a different way of rolling it. We're using pin and stretch here to get the IT band moving better. If it doesn't feel like much pressure there, both legs can bend and straighten together. That's a lot though. And you might just find a place in that range where you're just like, I'm just going to leave the balls there and hang out. Listen to whatever feels right in your body. If you find that you're clenching the teeth, if you're clenching your fist, if you feel like you're really gripping or guarding, then you're working too hard. This is about welcoming and allowing and familiarizing yourself with those sensations of the body. so that you can nurture yourself. Find out, what does my body need right now? And if you're gripping and clenching, you're not listening. You're just barreling through. And then find one more ball stop on the side there, just above the knees, coming to your side. Now, as the balls come lower in the knee, it's easier to extend both legs. But it still might only be the bottom leg. That's great too. If you feel like you're unstable in your hips and pelvis, this would be a better option. Keeping the spine still. Take 3 more deep breaths. Remembering to breathe. Remembering to keep the rest of the body relaxed. And then allowing the balls to come out. Okay. One more strengthening exercise today. I'm going to put the block between my ankles here. The Coregeous ball could also come to your ankles. Something to set, you maybe just a blanket. Something to separate the feet a little bit so this top leg drops down. I'm going to take my hand now, my top hand, my right hand, to the back of my pelvis, right on my sacrum. And this is to monitor, to not move the sacrum. All I'm going to do is do a little bit, a clamshell, a little hip rotation exercise here. So I'm going to pull my right knee back just a little bit. As I pull my right knee back, I feel the back of my hip engage. I'm suctioning my hip into the socket. Then I'm keeping both my feet together on the block. It's going to make it so I can't go up very high, but keeping the feet together, I'm going to lift the top knee. I'm already shaking. I want to feel the outside of my hip engage, and I'm going to hold that 5 breaths. With each exhale, pull the belly in. Keep the feet pressing together, feet are active, belly engaged. Hold the right knee up with the muscle on the outside of the hip. One more breath. And then release. Whew. Let's do that again. Feet press into whatever's between your ankles. Suction the right hip into the socket. So I'm going to feel the back of the hip engage before I even lift the knee. Then lift the knee. You might feel it go a little higher this time. I'm already shaking. 5 breaths here. And release. Great work. You could do that. I'm a little short on time, so I don't want to keep you too late, but you can do that 5 times for 5 breaths, and those are going to be the best clamshell exercise you've ever done for the side of your hip. You'll feel them burning, and you'll feel how with each breath your knee goes a little bit higher. So let's try that on the other side to finish up today. So first, coming on to your right side now. Take the therapy balls to the outside of your right thigh. And I'm going to bend and straighten my knees here. Maybe it's just the bottom leg that extends. Pinning and stretching the IT band. I'm really feeling here how the IT band affects my knee. I was getting a little bit of kneecap popping. So when the IT band is restricted, not moving well, we get what we call patellofemoral symptoms. The kneecap won't glide right. And then find another spot along the IT band, bending and straightening the knees. Really getting a lot of kneecap popping on this side. So you might be feeling something like that too. Just going through the available range. You don't have to bend and straighten all the way. It might just be a little arc that you're moving through. And through that little arc, you might just be teasing out a particular bundle that's bound down. Remember to breathe. Remember to keep the jaw relaxed. Maybe you just let the legs drop and sustain compression over the outside of the thigh here. And now let's finish up. Get the left glutes engaged. Take something, a block, a blanket, your Coregeous ball, whatever you have between your ankles, just so that you're not getting the pressure of the ankle bones and you have a little bit more ability to move in the hip joint. Top hand comes to the sacrum, right in the low back. Keep your sacrum anchored. Tuck the tailbone a little bit to engage your belly. Now drag the left hip back into the socket. If you see my knees, it's like I'm pulling the knee back on top of the bottom knee, just a little bit. So you feel the back of the hip fire up, and then lift your top knee. Engage the left glute. Hold here for 5 breaths. Keep the feet active, pressing into whatever's between them, blanket, pillow, ball, block. 3 more breaths. One more breath. Feel the shake, and then release. We'll do that one more time. Active feet. Draw the left hip back into the left hip socket like a suction cup. Engage the belly so the spine doesn't do the movement for you. Just from the ball inside the socket joint. Lift the left knee up towards the sky. Don't let the pelvis move. 5 breaths here. Keeping the feet squeezing together, lifting the knee a little bit higher on each exhale. Three more breaths. And release. You are complete. Nice work today. Take out all the props. If you'd like, maybe just take a moment, lie on your back, let the legs come out long. Whoops, let go of any efforting. Feel the pelvis, feel the hips sink into the floor. And on your own time, as you're ready, without rushing, you can make your way back to sitting. Thank you so much for joining me. Great work today.